When Paul Walker walks into Beverly Hills' most exclusive Porsche dealership wearing faded jeans and a plain t-shirt, the arrogant salesman immediately assumes he's just another curious shopper with no money to buy anything and publicly humiliates him in front of wealthy customers, telling him to try the used car lot around the corner. But what happens when the truth about who Paul really is revealed that will leave everyone at the dealership absolutely stunned and teach one man a lesson in respect he'll never forget. Before we continue this story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another special story for you. The afternoon sun glinted off the glass windows of Premier Porsche Beverly Hills, one of the city's most exclusive car dealerships. Inside, million-dollar sports cars were displayed beneath crystal chandeliers, their paintwork glistening like jewels. This wasn't just a place to buy cars, it was where the elite came to flaunt their wealth. Marcus Wellington adjusted his Armani tie and stared at his reflection in a midnight blue 911 Turbo. At 35, Marcus was the dealership's best salesman. He knew how to read people the moment they walked in, who had real money, who was faking it, and who was wasting their time. The showroom was buzzing with the usual afternoon energy. A well-dressed woman examined a white Cayenne while her assistant took notes. A man in an expensive suit spoke softly on the phone next to a vintage 356. These were Marcus's employees, serious buyers with lots of money. Marcus was sorting through brochures when the glass doors opened. A tall man in his late 40s walked in, moving with quiet confidence. He wore faded jeans, scuffed work boots, and a plain gray t-shirt that looked like it had come from a discount store. His hair was tousled, as if he'd been working outside all day. Marcus's trained eye immediately cataloged everything that was wrong with the photo. No designer watches, no fancy accessories, no obvious signs of wealth. The guy looked like he was in a construction site, not the flagship Porsche dealership in Beverly Hills. Marcus approached with his professional smile, polite but distant. "Good afternoon. Can I help you find something?" The man looked up from the silver 911 he was examining. "Yeah, I'm looking for sports cars. Something fast and reliable. Maybe a 901 or a Cayman." Marcus raised his eyebrows. The man's voice was warm and genuine, but that only made it worse. It meant he was either naive or completely delusional about what he could afford. "I see," Marcus replied, his tone condescending. "Well, these are quite exclusive vehicles. Are you familiar with the Porsche brand?" The stranger smiled. "Yes, you could say that. I've driven a few in my life." Marcus nodded slowly like a teacher acknowledging a child's wild assertion. "Took it. Where exactly?" "Oh, here and there," the man replied casually. "That's beautiful. What's the 0-60 mph acceleration of this model?" Marcus looked around, noticing that the conversation was attracting the attention of other customers. He needed to handle the situation delicately, to turn away the obvious non-buyer without causing a scene. "Listen," Marcus said, lowering his voice, "I appreciate your interest, but these vehicles start at $90,000. The model you're looking at actually costs $125,000. The man nodded thoughtfully. "That's not unreasonable, considering what you're getting." Marcus's patience was wearing thin. "Okay, and just so we're on the same page, do you have financing? Pre-approval from your bank?" The stranger looked at him for a moment. "Actually, I was thinking of paying in cash." Marcus couldn't help himself. He chuckled. "Money for a $125,000 car. Is that a problem?" the man asked calmly. By now the showroom had become noticeably quieter. The woman near the Cayenne had stopped pretending to look at the features and was openly observing. Even the other salespeople had stopped their activities. Marcus felt the weight of their attention. "Look," he said, raising his voice a little, "I don't want to waste your time or mine. These are serious cars for serious buyers. Maybe you'd feel more comfortable looking at something in your price range? There's a good used car dealership about 3 blocks away." The words hung in the air like a slap. The showroom fell completely silent. Several customers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Clearly bothered by Marcus's tone of voice, the stranger stood still, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, his voice was calm but heavy. "Do you think I can't afford to stay here?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably but insisted. "I think you can find better value elsewhere. These vehicles require a certain level of commitment." "Commitment to what?" "To the lifestyle," Marcus replied, gesturing around the dealership. "Porsche is not just a car brand, it's a statement. These cars are for people who have earned the right to drive them." The stranger nodded slowly. "And you determined that I had not earned that right based on my clothing." Marcus felt his face flush. "I'm just being realistic. Look around. Do you see anyone else dressed like you? Do you see anyone else who looks like they just stepped off a construction site?" The words were harsher than Marcus intended. Several customers flinched, and one of his colleagues looked mortified. The stranger absorbed the insult without batting an eyelid. "You know," he said quietly, "I've been in a lot of places where people judged me by my appearance, but I thought a company that wanted my money might be different." Marcus felt cornered. "It's not about judgment, it's about fit, understanding your market. These cars appeal to a specific clientele, and frankly, you don't fit the profile." The stranger looked around the showroom, taking in the other customers, the polished surfaces, the gleaming vehicles. "What profile is that, exactly?" Marcus straightened his shoulders. "Successful people, professionals, people who have worked hard and earned the right to own something special. People who look the part," the stranger added calmly. "People who respect what this brand stands for," Marcus corrected. In the third row of cars, a customer suddenly stood up. She had been watching the man's face closely, and something finally clicked. "My God," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "You're Paul Walker." The name dropped like a bombshell on the showroom floor. Heads snapped up, customers turned, and suddenly, the room erupted in whispers. Cell phones went off the hook as people began texting frantically. Marcus blinked rapidly, his mouth opening and closing. "Paul? What?" "Paul Walker," the woman cried, her voice thick with excitement and horror at what they had all witnessed. "He's the star of Fast and Furious." More customers began to recognize him. "Man, he was amazing in Into the Blue," someone shouted. "I loved him in Joyride," said another. Marcus froze, his face turning red as the magnitude of his mistake dawned on him. This wasn't just any person. This was a bona fide movie star, someone who had actually achieved everything Marcus had spent his career talking about. Paul Walker remained calm, seemingly unconcerned by the sudden recognition. He waved discreetly to the customers, never taking the same warm smile off his face. "That's right," he said simply. "I'm Paul Walker, and I came here genuinely interested in buying a car." He looked directly at Marcus. "I've been eyeing that Red Guard 911 in the corner for weeks online. I was ready to talk about the details, maybe take it for a test drive." Marcus's eyes widened as he stared at the car Paul had indicated, the most expensive 911 available at the location, equipped with every option, costing nearly $180,000. "But instead," Paul continued, his voice thick with disappointment, "I got a lecture about not belonging here, about not fitting the profile." The businessman who had been watching stepped forward. "I've been thinking about buying a Porsche for months, but after watching this, I'm wondering if I want to give my money to a place that treats people this way." Marcus felt his world crumble. "Please," he said, turning to Paul desperately. "I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Can we start over?" Paul studied Marcus's face for a long moment. "You know what, Marcus? I think you're sorry, but not because you understand what you did wrong. You're sorry because things aren't going the way you expected." The accuracy was devastating. Marcus realized he was sorry for the embarrassment, for the scene, for the lost sale. But was he sorry for judging Paul, for treating him as less than human? "Let me ask you something," Paul said quietly. "If I left here right now and came back tomorrow wearing a $3,000 suit and a Rolex, Would you treat me any differently? Marcus opened his mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come out. They both knew the answer. That's the real problem, Paul said sadly. It's not about the sale. It's about how you see people. The showroom remained silent, everyone absorbed in the moral drama unfolding before them. You know, Paul said, his voice changing, I've been in a lot of places where people judged me by my looks, but the problem with cars is they don't care what you look like. They only care about one thing. Do you respect what they can do? He put his hand on the hood of the 911. I've driven cars worth millions of dollars and beat up old trucks that barely worked. The value of the machine has nothing to do with the value of the person behind the wheel. A customer said, It sounds like you've had some interesting experiences. Paul smiled genuinely for the first time. I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing machines over the years. What kind of work do you do? Asked another customer. Paul hesitated briefly. I work in movies. Action movies, mostly. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Movies. Action movies. The relaxed way Paul talked about expensive cars, about the experience of driving. What's your name? Marcus whispered. Paul looked at him for a long moment. Paul Walker. The confirmation came like a bolt from the blue. Paul Walker. The star who made cars and speed famous around the world. A man who drove some of the most exotic vehicles ever built. And Marcus had just told him to try the used car lot down the street. Oh my God, Marcus whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Paul held up his hand gently. That's exactly the point, Marcus. You didn't know who I was, so you decided I wasn't worth your time or respect. Marcus felt tears begin to form. Mr. Walker, please let me fix this. Any car you want. Our best price. Paul shook his head. You still don't get it. This isn't about getting a better deal because I'm famous. This is about treating every person who walks through that door with basic human dignity. He looked around the showroom. Every person who comes in here has a story. They have dreams, passions, reasons for wanting to experience what these machines can do. Your job is not to judge whether they deserve that experience. Your job is to help them find it. Marcus nodded, finally beginning to understand. I came here today because I really wanted to buy a car, Paul said. But more than that, I was looking forward to the experience. I wanted to talk to someone who shared my passion for these machines. The showroom remained absolutely silent. Instead, Paul said, I was judged by my appearance. But you know what? That says more about the judge than it does about me. Marcus found his voice, though it was shaky. Mr. Walker, tell me how to fix this. Paul considered the question seriously. This isn't about fixing things with me, Marcus. It's about understanding what you need to change going forward. He gestured to the showroom. Every person who walks through that door deserves to be treated with respect. Not because they're famous, not because they have money, but because they're human beings with dreams just like you. Marcus wiped his eyes and nodded. I see. Paul studied his face and nodded slowly. I believe so. The dealership manager, who had been watching from his office, finally approached. Mr. Walker, I sincerely apologize for this situation. Please tell me how we can resolve this. Paul turned to him with a slight smile. Actually, Marcus just learned something valuable. I think that's worth more than any sale. He looked at Marcus. You know what? I'd still like to see that red guard 911. Not because of who I am, but because I'm someone who loves cars. Marcus's face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. It would be an honor to show you. As they walked together toward the car, Paul added quietly, And Marcus, next time someone comes in here wearing work clothes, remember that it might be someone passionate enough about cars to come straight from work to take a look at your dream. Marcus nodded, understanding dawning on his face. Yes, sir, I promise. When Paul finally signed the papers for the guard's red 911 Turbo S, the transaction felt less like a sale and more like a lesson learned. As Paul prepared to leave, he turned to Marcus one last time. Remember, he said, Passion has no dress code, and respect is something every person deserves, regardless of what they look like. With that, Paul Walker drove away from the premiere, Porsche Beverly Hills in his new 911. But he left behind something more valuable than any package, a lesson in human dignity that would forever change the way Marcus viewed his work and his clients. 6 months later, Marcus received a handwritten note from Paul. "Marcus, I wanted you to know that I have recommended your dealership to several friends, not because of the cars you sell, but because of the way you sell them. Continue to see the passion in each customer. The world needs more people like the man you have chosen to become. Paul." Marcus framed the letter, but more importantly, he carried the message with him every day. Because he had learned that respect isn't about what someone wears, drives, or owns. Respect is recognizing the humanity in every person who walks through your door. And sometimes the most important lessons come not from the moment someone gets it right, but from the moment they realize they got it wrong and decide to do better.